Welcome to Mickey, Marvel, and More, Disney news, commentary, and opinion. From theme parks to Thanos and from Skywalker to Skyliner, my family and I will discuss it all. So let's go!
Please stand clear of the doors. Por favor, manténganse alejado de las puertas.
Hello, Mark here, and welcome to another episode of Mickey, Marvel, and More. Thanks so much for taking some time out of your busy schedule to hang out with us here today. We are a small but mighty podcast, and we have some very fierce and loyal fans who we appreciate very much. Hopefully, you're a brand new listener. If so, welcome to our virtual family who love to discuss all things Disney. In today's family chat, Laura and I are going to sit down around the virtual table and bring you the latest installment of Park Bites.
Oh, boy!
In this Park Bites, we're going to chew on the fat that is Epcot and bring you the highs and lows of the sit-down and counter service eateries that are located in Walt Disney World's second theme park. But before we get to that, how about a little news from in and around the Disneyverse?
How old is this milk?
Nearly 100 years after his first appearance, Oswald the Lucky Rabbit will be getting an original series on Disney+. This character, created by Walt Disney in 1927, will be brought back to life by what I thought was a surprising choice, Jon Favreau. While Favreau is no rookie when it comes to Disney projects, being the director of the live-action remake of The Jungle Book and The Lion King, he's most widely known as the director who kickstarted the Marvel Cinematic Universe, directing Iron Man in 2008, and most recently he's been in charge of The Mandalorian on Disney+. Jon is also directing and producing the upcoming Mandalorian and Grogu film coming out in 2026. I think it'll be super interesting to see Favreau's take on what I assume will be a short-form animated series. Oswald the Lucky Rabbit hasn't been the star of his own Disney cartoon since his last appearance in September 1928 in a short called Skyscrapers. It was at that point that Walt Disney had the rights to Oswald purchased out from underneath him by Universal. Ultimately, that turned out to be sort of a good thing, because it forced Walt to come up with a brand new character, which, of course, became the face of the entire Disney company, Mickey Mouse. So I guess sometimes things happen for a reason. Oswald the Lucky Rabbit ended up in the public domain in 2023, so I'm assuming that's what led to Disney wanting to take another crack at the character. Not much else is known at this point about what Favreau intends to do with the new Disney Plus series, but as any new news comes out, Mickey, Marvel, and More will tell you all about it.
This is not Santa's workshop. It's just one section of a creative world where new attractions for Disneyland are conceived.
South by Southwest is a huge event that happens every year, and Disney is usually there to announce some of their new exciting things that they have on the horizon, especially when it comes to new technology. And this year's event did not disappoint. We'll try to cover all the highlights here, but rest assured, all the information will be in the show notes. First up, there will be a new storyline on the Millennium Falcon Smuggler's Run attraction to coincide with the release of the new Mandalorian and Grogu film that will be hitting theaters Memorial Day weekend of 2026. Disney announced that the new mission, featuring, of course, the Mandalorian and Grogu, will arrive on May 22nd, 2026. I assume this will be in both Galaxy's Edge locations. Disney Imagineers also dropped some new concept art for the upcoming Magic Kingdom Cars attraction, as well as some behind-the-scenes footage of the Imagineers testing off-road vehicles for the new attraction. While I definitely look forward to new attractions that Disney comes up with for their theme parks, the price we are paying as Disney theme park fans this time is pretty high. Because to make way for this new attraction, we will be losing the Rivers of America and Tom Sawyer Island in Frontierland. I must admit, I'm still pretty salty about that decision. We'll just have to see how Disney handles it. Another really cool announcement they made is that some new little droids will become walk-around characters in the Galaxy's Edge locations. These little BDX droids, which of course, as a surprise to no one, will be featured in the new Mandalorian and Grogu film, are super cool and they work together in packs so they can teach each other how to navigate the terrain by using reinforcement technology. And may I pause to say right now, hats off to my little tiny robot overlords. I think it's going to be really super cool to see though. During the presentation at South by Southwest, they also revealed the first look at the new movement and ride design for the new door coaster coming to Monsters Inc. Land in Disney Hollywood Studios. This is the first ever vertical lift attraction scene in Disney World and will be Disney's first ever suspended coaster. Now, check out the show notes for everything I just mentioned, plus a few other announcements after you finish the episode.
Jumbo, everyone, and welcome to Kilimanjaro Safaris.
Finally today, Viviana, a hippopotamus on Kilimanjaro Safaris at Disney's Animal Kingdom, recently celebrated her 50th birthday. Let's hear it for Viviana. To celebrate the occasion, the animal nutrition team at Disney's Animal Kingdom prepared a special birthday cake featuring her favorite treats, including sweet watermelon. Viviana is happy and healthy at the ripe old age of 50, which is already an impressive age for a hippo in captivity. As Vice President of Disney Animals, Science, and Environment, Dr. Mark Penning explained on Instagram, this elderly animal has access to top-notch health care and lots of socializations. Besides working with her head trainer Aaron and her other caretakers, she also has her other hippo friends, Tuma, Tequila, and Ramona, to keep her company. So the next time you jump in one of the Kilimanjaro safari vehicles and take a spin on the safari, be sure to wave and wish Viviana a happy birthday as you pass the hippo pool. As always, Mickey, Marvel, and more will keep you covered with all the big and tiny Disney animal news, so stay tuned.
We call it Epcot, spelled E-P-C-O-T. Experimental Prototype Community of Tomorrow.
Epcot, so many places to eat, so little time. So where are the best places for you and your families to spend your hard-earned Disney dollars? And which places should you avoid like Scrooge McDuck avoids tax day? Well, let's talk all about it in our latest installment of Park Bites.
Oh, boy.
Once again, my wife Laura joins us around the virtual table to break it all down. Welcome back, Laura.
Thanks for having me.
We're going to start with the worst counter service restaurants. Why don't you go ahead and take us down the road?
Sure. So, unfortunately, there's a clear winner that stands out for the worst counter service restaurants in all of Epcot.
Yep.
And that's the Lotus Blossom Cafe in China. Unfortunately, it has been described as having your standard mall food court Chinese food, only even a little bit worse.
That is 100% true.
And it's so sad because Epcot has so much to offer, and China, the pavilion itself, is such a pretty area, and the cafe actually looks out over the temple and the gardens. So it should be a very nice, picturesque spot to have some fantastic Chinese food. But unfortunately, that's just not the case.
Well, the one thing that is true is it is a picturesque spot.
Yes.
Other than that, avoid.
And you know, it's not just our opinion on that. The Lotus Blossom Cafe has consistently been rated worst counter service restaurant in Epcot for years.
Oh, almost since its inception.
So our second worst counter service restaurant is actually one of the newest in Epcot. It's the Connections Eatery in World Celebration. So that's in the Future World section of the
old
park.
Future World section.
Now, I will say, I think there is a large divide between worstness here.
Oh, for sure.
Because I find Connections Eatery to be fine. There's nothing wrong with the food quality. I think their menu is just very limited. And I think the offerings are not particularly creative.
You know, the first time we ate there, I'm like, oh, this is much better than the electric umbrella that it replaced. The food is much better than the electric umbrella. But it's still sort of just, for the most part, sort of your standard theme park food. Pizza, burgers. There are a couple of salads that are okay, but for the most part, it's pretty bland.
The only thing that this restaurant I think really has going for it is it's large. So there's plenty of table seating available. Although the last couple of times we've eaten there, it's been, we've had to wait a minute to get a table. So it's been pretty crowded. The other thing is they do have what they call, I think, show kitchens.
Right.
So the kitchen area has glass, and you can go up and watch them making desserts or salads or bread items, which is kind of neat. But it doesn't really take away from the fact that the menu is fairly standard.
Yeah, 100%. So let's get to the best counter service restaurants in Epcot.
Yes.
The first one is my personal fave, and it is the other really large eating location in the front half section of the park. It is Sunshine Seasons over at the Land in the New World Nature section. I have always really loved all the choices you have there because you've got all the food stations. You've got the fried chicken area. I forget what it's exactly called. And then you've got the Asian inspired area. You've got the sandwich inspired area. There's the dessert area. And the food has always been really good. What do you think?
I agree. It's been one of our family's favorites for lunch for years. Aside from the fact that you're eating in this really nice, bright, open atrium that makes for a very nice setting to eat, you have all of these options. And so Sunshine Seasons has always been a go-to for our family because everybody can find something they like.
Right. And it's not just that you've got the counters where you can pick up things. They have cases in between the counters where there's grab and go stuff.
Right.
So you've got cheese and fruit and the desserts and all the beverages you can think of. And it's just a really solid place to eat. It is the polar opposite of the Connections Cafe. There are things that are different, things that are interesting, and they do rotate the menu quite often. And they will change what is available. And sometimes my tuna is available, and sometimes my tuna is not available. But it always comes back. All right, so the next really good place, I'm going to have you pronounce it because I know if I try, I'm going to murder it.
It's the Boulangerie Patisserie Léal in France, in the World Showcase area.
That place.
And I think it gets overlooked for that reason because the entrance to this location is not on the main walkway around World Showcase. You actually have to go into the France Pavilion and kind of walk back through those little streets to get to this establishment. But the short walk off the main path is well worth it.
Yeah, they've got a really good selection of, obviously, since it's France, desserts, but they have some really good sandwiches and they've got some really good soups and salads. It's really sort of, in my opinion, a hidden gem because you don't really hear people talk about it very much.
I agree. You get things like quiches, which are a really nice, filling, yet not heavy meal to have either for lunch or dinner. And since it's cafeteria style, you can see what everything looks like when you're making your selections as you go around. So there's plenty to choose from. Croque monsieur, which is basically a French version of toasted ham and cheese, yet delicious. more delicious than the American version. They have a lot of tarts, savory tarts.
Right.
So tarts that are made with cheese and meats, in addition to all of the really wonderful desserts that they have there.
Yeah, and the area where you eat is sort of like this old school, like open marketplace.
Yeah.
And it's got, the cobblestone floor and the chairs, and it's very, very French, but it's also very, very good. So do not overlook that because most people do. All right, I think you have a bit of a disagreement where you have one other that you think needs to go onto the list.
I do. So I think a very close cousin to Boulangerie Patisserie is actually the crepe restaurant in France called Crêpes à Emporter. This is a newer restaurant in France, and it's actually over near the Ratatouille ride.
Right.
It's not over where you might in the older section of the France Pavilion. So this one has, it's a walk-up counter. There is also a sit-down location on the inside, but we've only ever been to the walk-up counter. Plenty of outside seating when the weather is nice to sit and eat. And in the occasions that we've been there in the past, the crepes have been excellent.
They are.
If you don't know what a crepe is, it is a very thin, savory pancake that then they can put various fillings in. So they actually have a ratatouille crepe that is made with tomato, zucchini, and eggplant. They have a crepe that has bechamel cheese and ham, which is sort of an elevated ham and cheese on a crepe. And they also have some wonderful dessert crepes as well.
Yeah, the kids really, really love that place. I know that Zach in particular and Sophie very much enjoy going back there and having the crepes. And yeah, it's a little further in the back of the pavilion. It's really behind the whole thing where they have ratatouille now. So you kind of have to look for it, but take the time to do it because it's very, very good. Okay, how about a quick nod to some of the fun lounges and other things to do that involving food at Epcot that aren't the Food and Wine Festival or the Flower and Garden Festival? Let's talk about a good place to sit down and have a drink. The Rose and Crown Pub in the United Kingdom. If you've ever wanted to go to an old English pub and sit around the bar and have a Guinness or have another English beer, this is the place to do it.
Yeah, it's always busy, always crowded.
Oh, for sure.
But it's worth it if you can grab a table there or even just sidle up to the bar and grab yourself a beer. It's got a really fun atmosphere, which I think does come pretty close to your English pub experience.
As the kids would call it, a vibe.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, one other really fun thing that is sort of along the lines of sampling some beverages in the World Showcase, the Wine Walk.
Always a favorite, Wine Walk. For those that don't know, the Wine Walk is an opportunity for you to sample some wines from different countries. You can start either in France, Germany, or Italy. You purchase a passport for one price. I don't think it's particularly expensive, if I recall.
It's not bad.
And then you can take that passport to those three countries and sample several wines of your choosing.
Yeah, you get 2 samples in each country per card, and you can choose which one of the wines they offer to sample.
It's been a really fun way to go and spend a little extra time in those pavilions, and a great way to sample some of those wines that maybe you don't necessarily want to shell out $12 for a full glass.
Right.
You want to sample and then buy the full glass.
You and I usually share it, and we'll sample both, and it's pretty good. It is a fun way to enjoy a little piece of that country without having to drop a huge amount of cash. My big suggestion would be either start in France or Germany.
Sure.
Because Italy's kind of in the middle.
Correct.
So I would start at either one of those locations, and it makes a little more sense as you walk around either direction you go.
The sommeliers that are doing the pours are also very knowledgeable about those wines.
They are.
So if you want to get a little education about the differences in the wines or how they're made or what regions of that country they're from, the sommeliers will be more than happy to share that with you.
All right, so let's move on to the worst in the sit-down department. All right, so why don't you start us off with this one?
Well, as fun as the Rose and Crown Pub is to grab a beer, unfortunately, their dining does not really live up to the vibe in the bar. Unfortunately, we've eaten here several times, and the food quality is just not great. And we've certainly had this kind of cuisine in the past. So shepherd's pie, bangers and mash, fish and chips. Honestly, I think the fish and chips that they sell out at the counter service location, is better than what you get in the restaurant.
Yeah.
I don't know how that happens, but we've just had subpar experiences here as of late.
And I think it also doesn't help that we've been lucky enough to actually go to the UK And, they always make the joke that the United Kingdom is not known for good food, but they do have good food. And we've been to many of their little pubs, and the food there is very good. This pub is just a bad copy
Yeah.
of what they offer in the United Kingdom. The only advantage to eating there is if you're going to watch the nighttime show, there's a deck portion where you can sit. And if you start your meal at a certain time, you can finish off your dessert while you're watching the nighttime spectacular happen. But really, other than that, there is no reason to go to this place other than grabbing a drink at the bar.
Yeah.
All right, what is the other worst? And this is hands down, I'm going to say almost the worst place in all of Disney property.
You may be right.
Almost. What is it?
Well, it's the Coral Reef Restaurant in the Seas Pavilion in World Nature. And it's so sad because when this restaurant opened, it was very good. And in fact, it was one of the first sit-down restaurants that we ate at in Walt Disney World.
Back when we didn't have two nickels to rub together.
That's right. The concept at the time was pretty revolutionary. You are eating in front of a giant glass aquarium. And in fact, it's the same aquarium.
It's just the backside of it.
The backside of what you see inside the pavilion. But, large marine creatures are floating by. It's floor to ceiling. So it's a very impressive view. You'll get divers that come by. Diver Mickey will sometimes float by and make an appearance.
Having a seat right next to the aquarium was the way to go.
And the food, which was seafood based, was spectacular. It was creative. It was very good. But unfortunately, it took a nosedive over time.
I believe it was they changed chefs.
That's usually what causes the problem. Yeah.
The very first time we ate there, we enjoyed it, and then we went back a second time, and it was worse than like the worst seafood. I mean, it was worse than Red Lobster on Discount Biscuit Day. It was just not good.
Yeah, not good. And unfortunately now it just sort of limps along, a mere shadow of what it once was.
Well, and the fact that the interior is still very dated.
Yeah.
It looks like the old pavilion used to look like, and they've not done much work in that place. So I don't know how long this place will remain in existence. It's a great location for a restaurant, being next to the aquarium, but the food, please avoid. There are much better places to eat. Speaking of which, the best sit-down places to eat in Epcot. So I was torn between two loves with my first pick, but I went with the Beer Garden in Germany. It is a buffet where you can choose from all the meats, all the cheeses, all the veggies, everything you can possibly imagine in a German meal. Of course, sauerkraut. But the big advantage to this place is it's dinner and a show.
We love a show.
And we also love the inside outside.
Yes.
Because it looks like you are literally in a beer garden in Germany. And, you've got the stars in the sky. And there's, you get the Papa band playing the whole time. And they're playing different songs. And they get everybody in the restaurant to lift their drinks and, chant along with them. But the food is really good. And I mean, for us, we live in a German area of the United States where there are a lot of German restaurants. But it was still fun for us to go there. The food was really good.
It delivers. And, even though I'm going to disagree with you about what the best sit-down restaurants are in Epcot, Beer Garden is definitely one of my favorites. The show is always fun. The food is always good. And we've always had a great time when we've gone.
Yeah, and if you, depending on the size of your group, they will seat you with other families, which, isn't everybody's cup of tea. But sometimes in a place like this, it's fun to do that because you're all sharing along and raising your glasses and doing the chanting. It's a really good time.
Yeah.
All right, my other pick for one of the best sit-down restaurants at Epcot is the polar opposite of the Beer Garden, where you party and hang out with your closest friends that you just made. It is Chefs de France in France. It is a very quiet sit-down place with very good French food. We've eaten there several times, and to me, I just feel like it is such a good place to eat. If you love French cuisine at all, there are a lot of things to offer there.
I agree. The food is always very good, and I often have a hard time deciding which thing to get from the menu because they have so many things that look good. And it's always delivered. The food quality, the presentation, everything has always been spot on there. So again, even though I'm going to disagree with you about my favorites, this one is really good.
Well, I mean, when we say disagree, we will still want to eat at any of these places.
Yes, of
It's
course.
just for this list purpose, we had different things in mind, perhaps. So, what are your picks for the best sit downs at Epcot?
So my picks for the best sit downs, number one is the San Angel Inn in Mexico. This is the restaurant that is inside the big temple. Again, it's inside outside,
We love it.
which is a favorite of ours. So you look like you are seated outside in the middle of a Mexican marketplace.
Yep.
And it is right next to the El Rio del Tiempo ride.
That's what it used to be
Yes,
called.
the old, it will forever be El Rio del Tiempo
Sure.
in my mind. But you can see the little boats floating by. You see the Aztec temple or the Mayan temple in the background. Just a very picturesque location, and the food is good. It is not your standard Mexican fare. So
Right.
if you are expecting your Chi-Chi's or Hacienda or your Chevy's Tex-Mex, you're not going to get that here. It is definitely more an upscale, authentic Mexican cuisine. And a fun fact that I found out recently is that it is based on a real location in Mexico.
That's right. That was a very interesting story. That's a story for another day.
That's right. That's definitely one of my favorites. My second favorite is Le Cellier in Canada. It is just a very good steakhouse. We've always had fantastic food there, fantastic service. The location is dark and very quiet and comforting.
Well, it's like a cellar
It is.
in a castle in Canada.
Exactly. That's exactly what the setting is. Again, there's lots to choose from on the menu, and it's been a fantastic meal every time.
Yeah, the steaks there are, I mean, that's obviously what they're known for are their steaks, but it's always been very, very good. Everybody always is able to find something to eat. And it is just, it also has, as the kids say, a vibe.
I think that's a theme with many of these restaurants,
Right.
is they do have a vibe, and it's a different vibe.
Well, I mean, the thing is, these restaurants aren't cheap. So, other than just good food, you want to have a reason to go there. And I think these places that we've been talking about, the Beer Garden, Chefs de France, the San Angel Inn, which was my other. That was my other, it was going to be either that or the Beer Garden. And the reason I went with the Beer Garden was the show. Although over at the San Angel Inn, they just completed the revamp of the Grand Fiesta Tour ride. And they also improved the projections on the wall behind the temple. So the volcano and the lightning are back on the big screen back there
great.
to make it look like you're, so
Yes.
yeah, many reasons to go there. So we've got one more on the list. That is a very, very good restaurant, but caveat, it is super expensive.
Yeah, this is definitely your splurge, maybe once in a lifetime,
Perhaps.
maybe once every 5 years kind of an experience, and that's Space 220.
Yeah, Space 220 over in World Discovery attached to Mission Space.
One of the things that I think makes this so fun is you actually enter the restaurant around the side. It's almost a little bit of a hidden
Right.
entrance. And when you walk in, it looks very much like the lobby of perhaps a very small airport. And you're given your ticket and you're given your boarding time. And then you get on an elevator. And the fun effect here is that the elevator is a space elevator that takes
Right.
you 220 miles up into space to the space station.
Hence the name Space 220.
Exactly. The effect is really cool. It's a really fun way to enter the restaurant. Once you get off of the space elevator, you walk through the hydroponic space plants and food
Rotating.
storage. Oh, yes. Very space 1999 futuristic vibe.
Right. 2001.
Yes, it's 2001. You get your table at the space station, and you are then looking out over space. And there are all kinds of interesting planets and spaceships and spacemen that you see.
Right. It's surrounded, 3/4 of it are surrounded by a huge window, which are essentially screens. But they apparently have so many animations, you're never going to see the same thing twice. Or and if you do see it, it's going to be slightly different. And they've got some nods to Star Wars there, and they've got some nods to other things. But I mean, it's a great, again, you're spending a lot of money, not just for good food, you're spending the money for the vibe.
Right. And lest you fear that this is all show and no substance, the menu here is fantastic. Food quality is amazing. It's creative offerings, well done. I can't say enough good
And
things
the
about it.
presentation.
Yes.
When you have the smoked salmon and they bring it to the table and they lift the glass and the smoke drifts into the air, it's so good.
It is. It is a fantastic experience, but it is pricey. And for that reason, I can't really in good conscience recommend it. As
Well, we
my
wanted to put it
favorite.
on here, but it's
Yeah.
not something that you can do every time or do ever maybe because, first of all, it is hard to get reservations there and it is so expensive. We've been lucky enough to go twice, but I don't think we're going to go back anytime soon. I mean, it's just so expensive, but it is so, so good. All right, so we've got one more of the Walt Disney World theme parks to cover here on Park Bites.
Or what's eating Mark?
Oh. So our next Park Bites that we do will be all about the Magic Kingdom, and we have got a lot to say about that.
We do.
All right, we'll see you next time. Before we get out of here today, I wanted to tell you something special that we have planned that has us very excited. The next episode to drop will be our annual Walt Disney World Spring Break Trip Report. Normally, the whole family would gather around the virtual table and discuss our thoughts and feelings about the highs and lows of our Walt Disney World Spring Break trip. This time, though, we thought we would try something a little different. This time, we're going to bring you with us. Mickey, Marvel, and More is going to try our very first boots on the ground style trip report. We're going to do some recording while we're in the parks and the resorts and the shops everywhere. If you ever wanted to go on a Disney theme park trip with my family and I, now is your chance. We are really excited about this, and we hope that you guys are too. So the next time you hear from us, we'll be in Walt Disney World, and you will be right there with us. Thanks so much for joining us for another episode of Mickey, Marvel, and More. And a big thank you to Laura for hanging out with me in the family chat to, wait for it, snack. Snack on Epcot in the latest installment of Park Bites. Look, I don't know what you think, but I feel like this new staff of writers is really working out. Good job, guys! Hey, when you're done listening to the episode, be sure to check out the show notes for all the stories we talked about today, as well as links to all of our socials. And if you feel like you have something you want to add to the conversation, why not click on our email, Mickey, Marvel, and More, all one word, @gmail.com, with a comment, family chat idea, or some anonymous confession you'd like to make. And if we read your email on an episode, you'll become an official friend of the show. And with that title and $7, you can get yourself a fancy coffee. As always, if you enjoyed this episode, my name is Mark, and this has been Mickey, Marvel, and More. If you didn't, my name is Dante, and I'm not even supposed to be here today. If you get that reference, we can definitely be friends. We'll see you next time from Walt Disney World.